Hi my dear students, today we are going to deal with a topic diaphragm, that means thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. The thoraco-abdominal diaphragm is a fibromuscular sheet. The muscle fibers are seen in periphery and they arise from the thoracic outlet and they are inserted into a central tendon. So this fibromuscular sheet separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, and this is a chief muscle for respiration. The diaphragm separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So relations are the structure superiorly. It is related to the pleura and also the pericardium. Inferiorly, it is related to the peritoneum, liver, which is under the right dome of the diaphragm. Then you can see the stomach or the fundus of stomach. It is below the left dome of the diaphragm. In addition to that, there is spleen, kidney, and the suprarenal glands. Depends on the origin of the muscle fibers, we can divide into three groups: sternal, costal, and lumbar. The lumbar part arises from the medial and lateral lumbocostal arches, and also it arises from the lumbar vertebra as right and left crura. Sternal part, as the name suggests, it arises from the sternum. It arises by two fleshy slips from the back of the xiphoid process of the sternum. The costal part arises from the inner surfaces of the cartilages and the adjacent parts of the lower six ribs on each side. It also interdigitates with the fibers of transversus abdominis muscle. The lumbar origin of the diaphragm, it arises from medial lumbocostal arch. Medial lumbocostal arch, otherwise called as medial arcuate ligament. It is a tendinous arch in the fascia which covers the upper part of psoas major muscle. Medially, it is attached to the body of the L1 vertebra, and laterally it attached to the front of the transverse process of L1 vertebra. In this picture, on the either side of this lumbar vertebra, what you can see is psoas major and psoas minor muscle. Over that, around the upper part of the psoas major and minor, there is a tendinous arch. That is the medial arcuate ligament or medial lumbocostal arch. Lateral to that, the next muscle what you can see here is the quadratus lumborum. Over the quadratus lumborum also, one tendinous arch is there. That is called as lateral lumbocostal arch or lateral arcuate ligament. Lateral lumbocostal arch. The fibers which arise from the lateral lumbocostal arch. Lateral lumbocostal arch is the tendinous arch in the fascia which covers upper part of quadratus lumborum. Medially, it is attached to the transverse process of L1 vertebra, and laterally it attached to the lower border of 12th rib. The right crus is larger and stronger than the left crus because it has to pull down the liver during each inspiration. It arises from the anterolateral surfaces of the bodies of upper three lumbar vertebra and the intervening intervertebral disc. Left crus arises from the corresponding part of the upper two lumbar vertebra. The medial margins of the two crura form a tendinous arch across the front of aorta called the median arcuate ligament. Muscle fibers from the circumferential origin, the fibers arch upward and then inward and form right and left domes. The right dome is higher than the left dome. In full expiration, it reaches the level of fourth intercostal space. The left dome reaches the fifth rib. The central tendon lies at the level of the lower end of sternum at sixth costal cartilage. The downward concavity of the dome is occupied by the liver on the right side and by the fundus of the stomach on the left side. The medial fibers of the right crus run upward and to left. It encircles the esophagus. In general, all fibers converge toward the central tendon for the insertion. Insertion of these muscle fibers are to the central tendon of diaphragm. The central tendon of the diaphragm lies below the pericardium and is fused to the pericardium. The tendon is trilobar in shape, made up of three leaflets, middle, right and left. Middle leaflet is triangular in shape. So in front is the xiphoid process of sternum. So it is directed towards the xiphoid process of sternum. Right and left leaflets are there. They are tongue shaped, curved laterally and backward, and the left one is narrower than the right one. The central area of the central tendon consists of four well-marked diagonal bands which fan out from a central point of decussation which is located in front of the opening of esophagus. When you come to the openings in the thoraco-abdominal diaphragm, we can divide into two groups as major openings and minor openings. So many structures are transversing from thorax to abdomen to the diaphragm, as well as from the abdominal cavity to the thoracic cavity through this abdominal diaphragm, thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. So, major openings, there are three major openings. One is the vena cava opening, the second is esophageal opening, and the third one is aortic opening. If you take the vertebral level, the inferior vena cava opening is at the level of 8th thoracic vertebra. Esophageal opening is at the level of 10th thoracic vertebra, and the aortic opening is at the level of 12th thoracic vertebra. So, IOA 8, 10, 12, like that you can remember the level of opening and the major openings in the diaphragm. Through the inferior vena cava opening or the vena cava opening, which lies in the central tendon of the diaphragm at the level of 8th thoracic vertebra, it transmits inferior vena cava and branches of right phrenic nerve. If you take the esophageal opening, lies in the muscular part of the diaphragm, is at the level of 10th thoracic vertebra. It transmits the esophagus, the gastric or vagus nerve, esophageal branches of left gastric artery with some esophageal veins that accompany the arteries. When you come to the aortic opening, It is osteoaponeurotic. It lies at the lower border of 12 thoracic vertebra. It transmits aorta, thoracic duct and azygos vein. The azygos vein may pierce the right crest of the diaphragm also. So, aorta, you can remember the mnemonic aorta through the aortic opening, that is azygos vein, thoracic duct and abdominal aorta. In addition to the major openings in the diaphragm, there are some minor openings in the diaphragm. When you take the crest of the diaphragm, each crest of the diaphragm is pierced by greater and lesser splanchnic nerves. The left crest is also pierced in addition by the hemiazygos vein. So, there are two apertures in the right crest and three minor openings in the left crest of the diaphragm. Then, the sympathetic chain passes from the thorax to the abdomen behind the medial arcuate ligament or medial lumbocostal arch. The subcostal nerves and vessels which pass behind the lateral arcuate ligament or lateral lumbocostal arch. The superior epigastric vessels and some lymphatics which pass between the xiphoid and costal origin of the diaphragm. That means the seventh costal cartilage origin of the diaphragm, between the costal and xiphoid origins of the diaphragm, and this gap is also known as Larry's space or foramen of Morgagni. The musculophrenic vessels also pierces the diaphragm at the level of 8th or 9th costal cartilage, and several small veins pass through the minute apertures in the central tendon. This musculophrenic artery and the superior epigastric artery, they are the branches of the internal thoracic artery. The phrenic nerves are the sole motor nerves to the diaphragm. Sensory supply. The phrenic nerves are sensory to the central part of the diaphragm, and lower 6 thoracic nerves are sensory to the peripheral part of the diaphragm. In addition to the diaphragm, the phrenic nerves also supply sensory fibers to the mediastinal and the diaphragmatic pleura, the fibrous pericardium, the parietal layer or serous pericardium, and the part of the parietal peritoneum which lies below the central part of the diaphragm. Through its communication with the phrenic branches of the celiac plexus, the phrenic nerve is also distributed to the falciform and the coronary ligaments of the liver, the inferior vena cava, the suprarenal glands and the gallbladder. Coming to the arterial supply of the diaphragm, it also supplied by the musculophrenic arteries, inferior phrenic arteries, superior phrenic arteries and also the lower intercostal arteries, 5 intercostal arteries and subcostal arteries. The position of the diaphragm in the thorax depends upon three main factors. The first one, the elastic recoil of lung tissue. It tends to pull the diaphragm upwards. On lying down, the pressure exerted by the abdominal viscera pushes the diaphragm upwards. On standing or sitting, the viscera tends to pull the diaphragm downwards. The next one is the muscles of abdominal wall. While standing, the muscles in the abdominal wall contracts, increasing the intra-abdominal pressure. This pressure tends to push the diaphragm upwards. In sitting or lying down, the muscles are relaxed. So, the position of the diaphragm is highest in supine position while lying down, lowest in sitting and intermediate in standing. Actions of diaphragm. The diaphragm is the principal muscle of inspiration. On contraction, the diaphragm descends, increasing the vertical diameter of the thorax. The excursion of the diaphragm is about 1.5 cm during quiet breathing. In deep breathing, it may vary from 6 to 10 cm. The next one is action is in expulsive acts to give additional power to each effort. Thus, before sneezing, coughing, laughing, crying, vomiting, micturition, defecation or parturition, a deep inspiration takes place, and this is followed by closure of glottis and powerful contraction of trunk muscles. It has also been claimed that the right crest of the diaphragm may have a sphincteric action on the lower end of the esophagus. The act of swallowing is immediately followed by expiration. This relaxes the sphincter and permits the esophageal contents to pass into the stomach. However, at present, the opinion is that the sphincteric action is due to the contraction of the intrinsic muscle in the lower 2 cm of the esophagus. So, this diaphragm may have sphincteric action on the lower esophagus. Some of the important clinical aspects of the diaphragm. One is hiccup or hiccup, shoulder tip pain, unilateral paralysis of diaphragm, eventration, diaphragmatic hernia. Coming to the hiccup or hiccup, it is a result of spasmodic contraction of the diaphragm. It may be peripheral due to local irritation of the diaphragm or its nerve, or central due to the irritation of hiccup center in the medulla. Uremia is an important cause of hiccup. Shoulder tip pain, irritation of the diaphragm may cause referred pain in the shoulder because the phrenic nerve and supraclavicular nerves have the same root values C3, C4 and C5. Regarding the unilateral paralysis of diaphragm, it is due to the lesion of phrenic nerve anywhere along its course is common occurrence. The paralyzed side moves to the normal side. That means paradoxical movement. This can be seen both clinically and fluoroscopically. Diaphragmatic hernia are two types, congenital and acquired. Congenital hernia, it is due to the failure of the development of parts of diaphragm. Posterolateral hernia or Bochtelag hernia, it is due to the pleuroperitoneal membrane defect. And then the other one is through Morgagni, retrosternal hernia through the foramen of Morgagni. It is due to a large gap in the sternocostal part of diaphragm. Central hernia, it is due to defect in the dome of diaphragm, usually left side and is very rare. And the other one is posterior hernia. It is due to defect in the crura of diaphragm. Diaphragm develops from the following sources. Septum transversum forms the central tendon. Pleuroperitoneal membrane forms the dorsal paired portion. Lateral thoracic wall contributes to the circumferential portion of the diaphragm, and dorsal mesentery of esophagus, it forms the dorsal unpaired portion of the diaphragm. Retrosternal hernia, it occurs through the space between the xiphoid and costal origins of the diaphragm or foramen of Morgagni or space of Larry. It is more common on the right side and lies between the pericardium and the right pleura. Usually it causes no symptoms. The second one, that is posterolateral hernia or Bogdalak hernia. This is by far the commonest type of congenital diaphragmatic hernia. It occurs through the pleuroperitoneal hiatus or foramen of Bogdalak, situated at the periphery of the diaphragm in the region of the attachments of 10th and 11th rib. It is more common on the left side. There is a free communication between the pleural and the peritoneal cavities. Such a hernia may cause death of the infant within a few hours of birth due to acute respiratory distress caused by abdominal viscera filling the left chest. This hernia requires operation in the first few hours of life. Regarding the central hernia, it is rare, left-sided, and is supposed to be the result of rupture of fetal membranous diaphragm in the region of left dome. And regarding the posterior hernia, this is due to the failure of the development of posterior part of diaphragm. One or both crests may be absent. The aorta and esophagus lie in the gap, but there is no hernial sac. Posterior hernia is due to the failure of the development of the posterior part of the diaphragm. One or both crests may be absent. The aorta and the esophagus lie in the gap, but there is no hernial sac. The other one is congenital hiatal hernia. So hiatal hernia can be two types, congenital or acquired. In the congenital type, it is due to the persistence of embryonic peritoneal process in the posterior mediastinum in front of the cardiac end of the stomach. The stomach can roll upward until it lies upside down in the posterior mediastinum. It is therefore called a rolling type of hernia. It is a rare type of hernia where the normal relation of the cardio-esophageal junction to the diaphragm is undisturbed, and therefore the mechanics of cardio-esophageal junction usually remains unaltered. Acquired hernia can be traumatic or hiatal. Traumatic hernia, it is due to the bullet injuries of the diaphragm. Hiatal hernia may be congenital or acquired, and congenital type is also called the rolling type, and the acquired hiatal hernia is also called a sliding type or sliding hiatus hernia. This is the commonest of all internal hernia. It is due to the weakness of phrenicoesophageal membrane, which is formed by the reflection of the diaphragmatic fascia to the lower end of esophagus. It is often caused by obesity or by operation in this area. The cardiac end can slide up through the hiatus. In this way, the valvular mechanism at the cardio-esophageal junction is disturbed, causing the reflux of gastric contents into the esophagus. Eventration is the failure of the development of all or part of diaphragm. It is a condition in which the diaphragm is pushed upward due to a congenital defect in the musculature of its left half, which is represented only by a fibrous membrane containing a few scattered muscle fibers. Thank you.